Is it difficult to do live action with the animation?
It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's amazingly rewarding when you see it and when you complete it to say that this is a thing that we did, but you basically do 3 different versions of every scene. You do one with humans in the space, so you're having an emotional connection with somebody, and then you do it with puppets, in our case, for Dopey and Grumpy and these
like hand
iconic
puppets,
characters.
or?
They were full, like, I say Julie Taymor-esque because if you've seen like The Lion King on Broadway, anything that Julie Taymor's done, it's that kind of puppetry where they're like attached to the feet of the puppeteer and then moved around by with their hands for all of those iconic characters. And then you do what's called a clean pass, to do like a clean plate, where it's essentially me doing Whistle While You Work to nobody, dancing and singing. And the thing you have to do with props.
Stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess. I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
It was supposed to be Disney's next big legacy reboot, but what actually happened behind the scenes of Snow White shocked everyone. Before a single frame hit the screen, the internet had already turned on Rachel Zegler. But what fans didn't know was that the real drama wasn't in the interviews. It was happening on set. Whispers of diva behavior, cast tensions, and late-night reworks started leaking from behind Disney's tightly closed doors. And soon, it wasn't just fans raising eyebrows, it was the entire industry.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
But you don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny.
Rachel is literally the star of a Disney movie, and she acts like she's some sort of victim, and that's the sort of mentality that is just poisoning people's minds. Like, she acts like her life is so bad.
How did one of Hollywood's rising stars go from breakout success to the center of a full-blown PR nightmare? And what was really happening when the cameras stopped rolling? This isn't just a story about backlash. It's about a modern fairy tale gone completely off the rails. And once you hear what went down behind the scenes, you'll never see Snow White the same way again.
So, you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie. And I believe it only made less than $1 million in China.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, I don't need your business. Thanks.
It started with a few interviews, press junkets, red carpets, quick conversations where Zegler was asked the usual questions about playing a Disney princess. But her answers, they were anything but usual. "I just didn't like the original," she said in one clip. "Snow White is not going to be saved by a prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love all day. That's not our story." It sounded like a modern twist, sure, but the tone, it rubbed people the wrong way.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There is a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
So no prince or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows?
Fast. Soon, old clips resurfaced. In one video, she joked that Prince Charming was basically a stalker. In another, she called the original Snow White weird and outdated. It wasn't just critique. It felt like she was mocking a Disney classic. Fans didn't see a strong, confident actress taking creative risks. They saw someone who despised the very story she was hired to bring to life. And it wasn't just the diehard Disney adults who were mad. Even casual fans began to question, why would Disney cast someone who seems to hate the movie she's remaking?
The woman shown here is not the actual woman playing Snow White, but the woman playing Snow White is named Rachel Zegler, and she and Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen, were caught on the red carpet. This is actually from September of 2022, but it's resurfaced now because the movie's coming out, talking about what we should expect from Snow White.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Oh my God.
Nobody
Who
wants
wants
that.
a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? The outrage.
The snowball effect was brutal. Clips of her comments were stitched into viral TikToks with sarcastic captions like, "Can't wait for this empowering version where Snow White becomes a CEO." Meme after meme painted Zegler as the face of Disney's tone-deaf reboot culture. And every time she spoke out again, it only made things worse. The more she defended her stance, the more it came off as dismissive, at least in the eyes of viewers.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now, and how they had her tweet out like a little, "Yay, Snow White, can't wait, so excited, I love to play her." And she did it and got like millions of views, and they were like, "Good job, Rachel." And then she, like minutes later, followed it up with, "And never forget, free."
But here's where things got even messier. Behind the scenes, there were already whispers that Zegler wasn't just controversial online. She might also be difficult to work with in real life. And that's where the real drama began. The online backlash was loud, but according to some sources, things behind the scenes were even louder. Once filming began on Snow White, a different kind of controversy started bubbling just out of public view. At first, it was just vague whispers, industry gossip that didn't have a source. But slowly, a clearer picture began to emerge, and it wasn't pretty. Crew members allegedly began leaking tidbits. Rachel Zegler was difficult to work with. Not impossible, not cruel, but just enough attitude to create tension. One anonymous insider claimed she had a habit of challenging directors, frequently voicing disagreement over dialogue, costumes, and even lighting. Another said she often arrived late to set or seemed checked out between takes. The phrase that kept popping up, she thought she was bigger than the movie.
She gets less likable. There's some clip of her on the internet in her Snow White outfit saying, "Every hour I am in the outfit of Snow White wearing the dress. All 18 hours, I deserve to be paid for every single one." Oh, really? Are you having trouble paying your bills, Rachel? Did Steven Spielberg not pay you for your role in West Side Story? Did Disney fail to give you a healthy paycheck for, like, cry me a river? She's just exactly everything that we can't stand.
Stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess. I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
Now, let's be clear, none of this was officially confirmed, but in Hollywood, perception often is reality. The moment these behind-the-scenes rumors surfaced, they spread like wildfire. Fans already upset by her interviews now had evidence that she wasn't just mocking the story off camera. She was allegedly clashing with it on set too. And then there were the rumors about tension between Zegler and her co-stars. Some fans speculated that she didn't get along with Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen. Others suggested she pushed back against the director's vision for a more traditionally magical feel, instead pushing the film in a girl boss direction that producers were hesitant about. One alleged crew member posted, then quickly deleted, that the energy on set was tense and uncomfortable whenever Zegler was around.
Isn't her co-star Jewish?
Yes, Gal Gadot, whatever.
Gadot. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Wow.
They tried, they flew an executive, one of the producers, out to go visit personally with Rachel Zegler to say, "Could you please take that down? Because we understand you, but those aren't really helpful while you're trying to build an audience for a movie. Maybe you could save them for like your diary and your friends, but like maybe not, maybe just take the tweet down." And she wouldn't.
That post alone generated thousands of likes and quote tweets before vanishing. Zegler, for her part, never directly responded to the rumors, but some fans noticed her cryptic tweets during the filming months. Phrases like, "Some people want you to fail because they're afraid of what you represent," and "Don't mistake confidence for arrogance," left people wondering. Was she subtweeting her own crew? The idea that Rachel Zegler had become a diva, or worse, a liability, started to stick. And when fans don't feel like a star believes in the story she's telling, they start to tune out fast. But that wasn't the only storm brewing on set, because while Zegler was catching heat, Disney made a creative decision that sent shockwaves through its own fairy tale. And this time, it wasn't just about her. Let's talk about the dwarfs, or rather, the lack of them. When leaked set photos showed a ragtag group of diverse characters walking through a forest, with only one being a little person, the internet lost it. Disney had apparently decided to eliminate the classic 7 dwarfs in favor of a new set of magical characters. The backlash was immediate and intense. But what really poured gasoline on the fire? Rachel Zegler's reaction. In multiple interviews, she expressed full support for the change. "We're not doing the dwarfs," she said casually in one clip. "It's no longer 1937, thank God." That statement alone sent fans into a frenzy. She wasn't just defending the update, she was mocking the original again. For For millions of people, the Seven Dwarfs were the heart of the original film. They weren't just side characters, they were iconic, each with their own unique charm. To toss them aside and then publicly celebrate that decision felt like erasure to longtime fans. It was no longer just about representation or modernization. To many, it felt like an attack on tradition. Even actor Peter Dinklage, who initially criticized the use of dwarfs in a backward fairy tale, later clarified that Disney misunderstood his point entirely. He said he wasn't asking for them to be erased, but reimagined with dignity and depth. Instead, Disney went with the nuclear option. And guess who got caught in the crossfire? Zegler.
It's the one where they actually took the dwarves out of the Seven Dwarfs?
Yes, we have CGI dwarves now.
Okay, yeah, because little people didn't need jobs either.
It's Peter Dinklage wanted the whole field to himself. Went out there and was like, this is insulting, unless it's me.
He kicked the ladder.
Yeah, he got his money in Hollywood, and now he's like,
oh,
don't
nicely
hire
done,
anyone
Smug.
else.
The ladder.
Sure. That was nicely done.
No, but I mean, he got his money acting as a little person. Now he's saying it's demeaning for them to have those roles. He acted as a dwarf on like the most popular show on TV for 10 years, made millions of dollars. Now he's like, how dare people hire dwarves to act as dwarves? It's ridiculous. He got his money and then kicked the ladder down behind.
Again, fans accused her of co-signing a decision that not only disrespected the original film, but also sent the wrong message about inclusivity. Some asked, if the dwarfs are offensive, does that mean the whole movie is? Then why make it at all? Every comment Zegler made about the change felt like another spark in a gas-filled room. She wasn't just defending the creative vision, she was framing the past as something we should all be embarrassed by. And for a company like Disney, built on nostalgia, that's a dangerous narrative. The blowback was so intense that Disney went silent. No formal statements, no corrections, and no signs of damage control. But fans weren't done, and what happened next pushed the backlash from controversy into full-blown rebellion. At this point, it wasn't just backlash, it was a full-on revolt. The internet turned Rachel Zegler into a symbol, whether she wanted to be or not. But the symbol wasn't inspiring, it was infuriating. TikTok, Twitter, YX, Reddit, they all exploded with edits, memes, and entire threads dedicated to tearing her down. Clips of Zegler criticizing the original Snow White were stitched next to videos of her singing I Feel Pretty in West Side Story with captions like, more like I feel petty. Users began mocking her tone, her expressions, even her fashion choices during press appearances. Everything became fire. Then came the hashtags @FireRachelZegler, #NotMySnowWhite, and Boycott Disney trended multiple times throughout 2023 and 2024. What started as frustration over casting had mutated into something much bigger. It became a cultural argument over tradition versus progress, sincerity versus sarcasm, legacy versus reinvention. And for many, Zegler wasn't just an actress playing a role. She was the face of Disney's entire identity crisis. Fans dug deep. Some began resurfacing old tweets and videos of Zegler, looking for anything controversial, anything to prove that she wasn't grateful for the role she'd been given. One TikTok with over 4 million views accused her of being the most ungrateful Disney lead of all time. It didn't help that Zegler stayed mostly quiet during the height of the outrage. Some interpreted her silence as arrogance. Others believed it was a strategic move by Disney's PR team to limit damage. Either way, the absence of a heartfelt clarification, or even a genuine apology, only made things worse. And then came the real blow. Fans started turning on the film itself. Suddenly, it wasn't just about Rachel, it was about Snow White, period. People who once planned to see the movie started openly declaring that they'd boycott it. YouTube creators dropped hour-long breakdowns of why Disney's remake is doomed. Reaction channels roasted Zegler's interviews. Even previously neutral influencers jumped on the trend, calling the movie tone-deaf, soulless, and a mockery of Disney's legacy. It became a cycle. Zegler would say something, fans would react, the studio would stay silent, and the fire kept growing. But here's the most interesting part. For a company that prides itself on controlling the narrative, Disney said nothing, and the silence? It was louder than anything Zegler had ever said. Disney is no stranger to controversy. Over the years, they've weathered everything from casting backlash to controversial boycotts. But this time, their strategy was eerie. Total silence. For months, as the internet shredded Rachel Zegler's image and declared open war on the remake, Disney said nothing. No press statement, no damage control, no let's wait and see interviews. It was as if the studio hit mute and hoped the storm would blow over on its own, except it didn't. In fact, things got even weirder. Zegler, who had been front and center during early press, suddenly disappeared from the spotlight. She skipped major conventions, no new behind-the-scenes footage was released, and Disney's social media pages barely mentioned Snow White at all. For a movie that was supposed to anchor Disney's legacy reboot lineup, it looked more like a project they wanted to bury. Then, in what felt like a move straight out of a PR crisis manual, Disney announced a massive delay. The film's original 2024 release was quietly pushed back by nearly a full year. Officially, the studio blamed production delays, and and strike-related setbacks. But fans weren't buying it. Almost instantly, speculation began flying. Was Disney trying to re-edit the film behind the scenes? Were they reshooting key scenes? Was the studio distancing itself from Zegler altogether? Some even believed Disney was testing the waters, delaying the film to see if the controversy would fade enough to sneak it into theaters with minimal promotion. Others thought they were buying time to replace Zegler in press tours, or even consider a full rebranding of the film. The theories got wilder by the day, and while some of them were clearly exaggerated, one thing was certain: this wasn't normal. For a remake of Disney's most historic animated feature, the rollout was bizarrely quiet, borderline secretive, and Zegler's vanishing act only added fuel to the conspiracy theories. At the same time, insiders began leaking that Disney executives were panicking behind closed doors. The film's internal test screenings reportedly didn't go as planned, and with the internet already turned against the lead star, the studio faced a brutal truth. Even if the movie was good, would anyone care anymore? And through it all, Rachel Zegler remained mostly quiet, posting the occasional selfie, hinting at future projects, but saying nothing about the chaos surrounding her. But silence doesn't stop a career from bleeding. And soon, people started to notice something else. Something far more dangerous for Zegler than memes or hashtags. She was starting to disappear from everything. As the dust settled, a chilling pattern began to emerge. Rachel Zegler wasn't just being dragged online. She was being frozen out of the industry. It didn't happen overnight. But one by one, opportunities that once seemed lined up for her began quietly slipping away. Studio insiders whispered that Zegler had become a red alert, the kind of star execs didn't want to touch, not because of her talent, but because of the noise that followed her. Think about it. After West Side Story, Rachel was supposed to be Hollywood's next big thing. She landed a spot in The Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, voiced a character in an animated film, and of course had Snow White locked in. But after the backlash, crickets. No new roles announced, no major brand endorsements, no awards buzz. Zegler's name started fading from casting shortlists, and some fans began calling it the Zegler effect, a term for when a studio bets big on someone who ends up tanking the marketing before the movie even hits theaters. And in an industry where image is everything, that's brutal. Directors and casting agents reportedly started second-guessing her, not because she couldn't act or sing, but because she was divisive. One producer allegedly said in an anonymous quote, "You never want the face of your movie to be the reason people don't see it." Even her online presence began to shrink. Her posts became less frequent, her interviews dried up, and when she did appear publicly, it felt cautious, filtered, like someone who'd been burned hard and was still figuring out how to move in a space that once adored her. The industry, it seemed, had moved on, and no one wanted to talk about the real reason why. But the question left hanging in the air wasn't just about Rachel Zegler, it was about all of us. When did we start punishing actors not for their performance, but for their opinions? So, what really happened here? Was Rachel Zegler too honest in a world that demands perfect PR-trained answers? Was Disney too ambitious, trying to modernize a story that fans never wanted to see touched? Or was this simply the result of the internet's ruthless attention economy, where one soundbite can destroy a career faster than a bad box office? Maybe it's all of the above. Rachel Zegler didn't commit a crime. She didn't hurt anyone. She gave a few off-the-cuff interviews, shared her opinions, and became the face of a controversy that spiraled out of control. But somewhere along the line, her image stopped being hers. It became a battleground between progress and tradition, nostalgia and change. And the weirdest part, we never even saw the movie. The Snow White remake, as of now, exists in limbo. Delayed, reworked, maybe even quietly shelved, depending on how deep Disney's panic runs. But the damage has already been done, not just to a film, but to a career, a reputation, and maybe even to how we view celebrities in the age of hyperreaction. Because when a single actress becomes a lightning rod for a billion-dollar corporation's identity crisis, you have to ask, was she ever really in control? Rachel Zegler walked into a role thinking she was playing a princess. What she got instead was a storm she never saw coming. And that might be the real fairy tale gone wrong.